Hey guys, welcome to Shop Dust. It's 40 below zero outside. I ain't going out there. So let's build something like this miter saw station. So when it's really cold up here in the Great White North, I seem to find myself in the shop quite a bit more often than I do in the summer months. Here I am planning this miter saw station out, figuring out where I want it, how it's going to be situated, and getting down to some business. So far for my miter saw station plans, there are going to be drawers and doors here in this area, and this area, and so the whole thing is going to be about 7 feet 6 inches long, 90 inches, 37.5 inches high. The reason I went with that height is because it keeps it even with my table saw and my other work surfaces. So yeah, there's going to be two boxes. One's 27 inches wide or long, and the other one is going to be 36 inches long with the 27-inch section here in the middle for the miter saw itself. So with that, I'm going to get building. As you can see, it's awful cold outside, so I'm trying to hurry up and rip this plywood down to a manageable size so I can shut the door and save some heat. I'm using masking tape here for my cross cut so I don't create tear out. This plywood has a very thin top veneer and tears out real easy. Here's an attempt to use a square with a jigsaw as a guide. Didn't work out so well. The cross bracings for the back side of the Carcass, and they will be screwed into the studs in the wall after I level the cabinet out. As you can see, I like to use a hand screw clamp to support the plywood as I'm screwing in the bracing. It acts as that extra pair of hands that I just don't seem to have. And of course I had to break out the good old pocket hole jig. You didn't expect me to build this project with all traditional joinery, did you? And here's a shot of just being on the level. So I don't have a track saw, so I measure the offset of my circular saw foot from the cut line and run the saw along a straight edge.
It's the old-fashioned way of doing things, I guess. The gap between my table saw and outfeed table support the wood from binding and acts as a good clear gap to run my crosscuts. So as you can see here, I turned to my circular saw to make good, clean, straight cuts, and then just finished them off with the jigsaw. I really do like these little pocket hole jigs. They fit in places where the big unit just won't do it. This here is the assembly of the second cabinet. I could have batched these out, but I guess I like to make things hard on myself sometimes, so I did them separately. Just trying to get a precise measurement here for the offset of the tabletop the saw will be sitting on. And if you're wondering, it was 4 9/16. Here's a neat little trick I learned. I use a washer and a pencil to run a scribe line along the wall. Works out great. I'll let the results of a pencil, a washer, and a bandsaw speak for themselves here. And it's time for a little bit more duct work for dust collection. Oops, I forgot to put my temporary supports back in. A 1/2-inch round over bit here in hopes that it will help dust flow into the ducting a little bit easier. Look at old Zeus back there photobombing my video. Here I use lots of silicone and some foil ducting tape and some screws to make sure there was an airtight seal around this ducting hole. Here I mark and drill a 1-inch hole for power cables to the miter saw and my workstation in the middle of the shop. Here I just used a spare piece of ducting I had and cut it to size so that I could mark the hole where the ducting is going to run through the countertop. So here I use a machined reference bar to make sure everything was parallel to each other and there was no rocking going on between the tabletop and the miter saw, and then was able to screw everything in once I got it all in place and set just right. And I am just so in love with my granite countertop. That'll be really nice. So now it's time to measure for the dust box and build it. So in case you're wondering, this whole project was built out of 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood and the granite, and 1 piece of 1/8 inch plywood for the back of the miter box. The whole project thus far has cost me just about $100. So the miter saw box was built out of pretty rough plywood, so I sanded everything down to 200 grit. to have a nice snug fit. And here's an easy way to set up your router. I'm going to be cutting a rabbet in the back of the dust box for a 1/4 inch piece of plywood to protect my wall from getting dust all over it. And we got to give Zeus a good rub down, get all the sawdust off of him. I think he likes being in the shop and getting covered because he gets lots of pets and loves. This is where the old saying, measure twice, cut once, comes into play. I caught myself a 1/2 inch off. Here I used this T-square as the fence for the table saw. The fence for the table saw just wasn't quite long enough, so I had to improvise. And it's always fun to try new things as long as it's safely done. Glue to the rabbet to prevent dust from getting in between the cracks and securing it with crown staples. As I'm cutting this 45-degree bevel on these pieces of stock, I noticed that when I turned them around that they would rock in the saw. I didn't feel comfortable using the push stick I had because it only supports the back end of the stock, so I'm going to stop for a minute and make a push block. Back to work on the project at hand. I only had one more 45-degree cut to make, but the time it took me to make the push block and do the job safely was still shorter than a trip to the emergency room. Now with the dust box all done and everything, I'm just kind of showing off how well the dust collection in this area works. And not really a whole bunch of dust got past the dust collection. There's a few little specks here and there, but I'm pretty happy with the results. And now it's time to mill down this 2x4 into 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch stock. Going to use it to face off the plywood. As I'm resawing this 2x4, I take it a little bit at a time. It took me about 4 passes to get through the whole thing. Sometimes it helps to remember to turn on the dust collector. And now ripping the 1/4 inch stock into 3/4 inch stock. Just me making a 0 clearance fence for the miter saw. Real quick, simple, and dirty. And I just used some double-sided carpet tape to keep it attached to the miter saw. Worked fine. is, all dressed up and functional. Next project, drawers.
So here I plan on putting in drawers, 3 to 4 on each side, so anywhere between 6 to 8 drawers. This side they're only going to be about 14 inches deep, and on this side I can go the full 22 inches of the cabinet carcass. But I need storage, and I'm going to use this miter saw station as a way to get that. So this section of the miter saw station, I'm going to have 2 long drawers that fill the full width of the cabinet here, and then I'll probably have a partition down the middle, right in the middle of those 2 drawers, with 4 other smaller drawers right there. I do know that the top drawer is going to be my sharpening drawer with all my stones and sharpening equipment. This granite countertop here will be perfect for that, a nice true flat surface. Now this section under the miter saw in the middle here, I've been putting some thought into. I believe what I'm going to do is put a couple shelves in there with a bottom, and just work the shelves around the ductwork back there, make them removable, so if at any time I need to get to that ductwork, I can. Put a couple doors on it and be able to use it for storage, such as odds and ends and this and that's and whatnots. Well guys, there you have it. A miter saw station build, partial miter saw station build. As you can see, I'm not quite done with it yet. I wanted to give Jay Bates a shout out. You know, he inspired me to build this thing. I like his miter saw station. In fact, I fell in love with it the first time I saw it in one of his videos. I just don't have the kind of space for that. I do if I were able to get rid of the snow machine and the 2 4-wheelers somewhere other than my garage. But just wanted to thank Jay Bates, you know, being an inspiration and getting me off my butt and getting me working on that. I really enjoyed it. The granite countertop that I put on there was an old coffee table. The granite was free. Granite company down in Anchorage, Alaska was giving away a bunch of granite, had a pile out there, so I took a couple pieces, and that was going to be a coffee table, but I've been hauling it around for years, and the surround that I had built out of mahogany was broken, and I've been kicking it around in my shop now for a couple years since I moved into this place, and decided, you know what, it's a great true flat surface. It'll be a really good glue up station for small glue ups, and a great sharpening station there. I can get glue on it or whatever and just scrape it off, really durable stuff. It's granite. The ductwork was kind of a pain to get in there, but it's a 6-inch ductwork, and man, it just is so efficient with the miter saw. You can actually watch the dust vortex down into the suction. So it's right next to the dust collector. It does a real good job with the dust box and everything else. I think I'm going to really enjoy that. So I will be finishing up with the drawers after I get back from work. I plan on building it out of 1/2-inch material with half-blind dovetails for the front of the drawer and dovetails all around. Want a 1/2-inch bottom for the drawers. Want them to be able to hold a little bit of weight without sagging. And some of my other drawers here in the shop have 1/8-inch plywood on the bottom, and they tend to sag a little bit, and I don't like that. So guys, if you like what you've seen and you like my videos, please give me a like and subscribe if you will. And if you want to be notified for future videos, hit that notification bell up in the corner. And with that guys, this is Tim at Shop Dust. You guys keep on working in the shop.